So if I have my shape tool selected on pixels, my foreground color, now if I start to paint, it's going to fill it as if it's just paint on a canvas, and you'll see it's all compounding on the same layer. So you'd use different ones for different reasons, like if I wanted to create a box on top, oopsies, that I want to be able to move independently of everything else, then probably a good idea would be to use the vector tool option. But if I really don't care and I'm just creating a shape and I'm using my own capacity to create layers to keep them organized, then pixels is probably your best bet. So those are the vector tools. Okay, let me get rid of a few of these layers here. Okay, that brings us to panels navigation. So a lot of times in tutorials I'm going to say, okay, open up your history panel. Well, you're looking at all these tabs and you're thinking, okay, where is my history panel? Well, Photoshop categorizes all of its panel options under Window. So if you look down here, History Panel does not have a check mark next to it, which means it's not open. But if I click on it, it opens. You can adjust the size of your panels by dragging out on the sides, on the bottom. I can undock my panels so I can completely remove it and have it work independently. I can collapse it, expand it, close it. Same thing with these guys. I can completely undock these guys. If I want to nest it back, I just drag it in where I want to nest it, drag it out, drag it in where I want to nest it. Okay, same thing with my tabs. I can click on my actual artboard and drag it out, my other artboard and drag it out, and then I can work with them side by side, bring them back up and nest them. The other guy fell behind. Sorry, a little glitch happened there. This guy was in front, I lost my other guy, so I just went Window, Arrange, 2 up vertical, or I could go Window, Arrange, Consolidate all tabs into one again, and now I've got them on their own tabs. Also, in the top right of your interface, you'll see this little guy. It's a drop-down menu. The top section here are just different layouts that Photoshop has in terms of panels that are open. So if I go to photography, it's going to keep adjustments, histogram, and layers. Painting will have brush options. Essentials is just kind of like a mixture of a few different options. If you've moved things around and you've lost something or you want to get back to kind of where you were, just hit reset and then whatever workspace that you want, and it brings you to the original default. Now, one thing before we kind of end this video is just I want to cover layers, the concept of layers. Really, in my opinion, one of the most powerful concepts in Photoshop is the concept of layers. So you'll see here I went File, Open, and that's how I got this image into Photoshop. But let's say I want to start painting above it. Now vector tools, as we saw, will automatically create new layers, right, whenever they type. But what happens if I want to paint? So if I'm grabbing my paintbrush and I'm grabbing a color, oops, okay, right now it's not letting me because I'm on a vector layer. It's not mixing worlds there. If I go onto my background, it will let me. But now I've effectively kind of destroyed my image. If I wanted to go in and erase this, the eraser is going to result in our background color, first of all, but I can't actually erase anything. I'm erasing both my image and my paint. I'm just going to step back in my history panel here. This is where the power of layers come in. So I'm going to create a new layer down here. I'm going to name it Brush. I'm going to grab my brush tool. Up here are all of my options here. So I'm going to make it a completely hard-edged brush. My size options are here. So you can see kind of the diameter of my brush. However, your square brackets on your keyboard just above the Enter key, if I go left, if I go right, will change the size. My opacity is the transparency of the brush. Flow is how much paint is coming out of the brush. Think of like an airbrush. These guys here are, if you have a pen tablet selected, they'll be pressure sensitized with your tablet. And this is a blend mode, so this is going to affect the lights and the darks of your brush. For right now, just keep it on normal. And now if I start painting, you'll see that it's created it on its own layer. Lots of control. So if I go in now with my eraser tool, it gives me maximum control in being able to work with that brush. So I create multiple layers of multiple colors. If I want to move one, I click on that layer and it'll move it. Okay, if I want to transform something, I want to scale it, I want to rotate it, edit, you've got your free transform option here, or your direct transform options, but I can also go Control T, Command T or Control T on a PC, and I can scale it, holding Shift and dragging out from the corners. We'll keep things proportioned, hit Enter to set it. With my titles and photos, if I am scaling it, I never want to see you guys squash or stretch it. Okay, always keep it proportion. Keep the proportions when you scale. With regards to layers, you have your options down here to kind of work with layers. You could create a folder if you wanted to and have things organized in that folder. Sorry, my background layer is locked. Layer options can be found under the Layer tab, so we can get into that later, but you can know that under the Layer tab, these guys all control this panel. And then last but not least, before we kind of sign off here, I just want to go through the undo feature of Photoshop. So it's technically not undo, it's stepping backward. If you go Control Z on your keyboard, you'll see that it only has one step option for undo. It's not like working in Illustrator or say like Microsoft Word or Google Docs where you can undo kind of to a certain number. This is kind of one or the other. So if I go up to Edit to try to figure out what's going on here, you can see step backward has a different keyboard shortcut. So undo once is Control Z or Command Z. If I want to actually step backwards, I'm going Alt Control Z, and that's actually stepping backwards. But what this is doing, if I open up my history panel, this is recording all the different states that I'm doing, all the different moves that I'm making in Photoshop. It's recording. So if I'm going Alt Control Z, you can see it's just stepping backward. So that's where this concept is coming from. I can also just jump backwards and click on one, and then if I start actually painting, you'll see that it deletes all of those states and introduces new ones now. If I undo once, I can get back to that, but if now I start painting, I've lost those states. Now, this isn't infinite. It's not going to record this forever and ever and ever. You do have to set this. So in a PC, you'll find your preferences under Edit. In a Mac, you'll find them here. You go into General, there's all kinds of fun things that you can customize in here. You can customize your appearance. You can customize guide colors and all that fun stuff. Yep, performance, all kinds of fun stuff. Yeah, so guides you can customize. The number of history states is actually under performance. It's not under history log. Performance here, history states, right now I have it set to 50. If I up that, which I would if I'm doing an illustration, say that's painting, so I know that I'm going to be having a lot of brush strokes, I would probably up that, but just know that the higher the number of history states, the higher the file size potentially, or the more RAM it might take on your computer. Might get a little bit laggy, so you're kind of balancing that. So I hit OK, and now I know that it's going to save about 130 states in there. So a quick review on saving. File, save as. I'm going to save this as a PSD document. Last name, first name, last name, first name, and then whatever project you're working on. Okay, that is the raw format for Photoshop. And then file, save as. A JPEG is the compressed. Okay, so when I'm in the JPEG option, this is my little slider for the compression and the quality, and this is going to tell you your file size. So 524K is really, really small, so that's good. I can keep that up. If you're working on uploading stuff to Weebly, for example, the max is 10 megs, so you'd want to keep this under 10 megs, which means that you might have to kind of make some adjustments there. Okay, that's it for interface intro.